about Northern Virginia, if you will. Northern Virginia, we had a big success.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for your leadership, Deputy Attorney General, and the rest of our interagency partners. Mr. President, the following is what happens when you let good cops be cops, and I just want to highlight that before I get into Northern Virginia. This year alone, under President Trump's administration, we've had over 4,000 child victims identified and found. That's a 33% increase from the same time period last year. 33% increase. We've had a seizure of 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl up to this date. That is a 25% increase since the same time period last year. And just to put it in perspective, 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl is enough to kill 115 million Americans. 115 million Americans. Cops are getting after it. The FBI has arrested 19,000 people this year alone.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your independent political analyst, no spin, no tribalism, just facts, context, and thoughtful commentary. Today, we're looking at a speech from FBI Director Kash Patel, where he outlines what he sees as major law enforcement successes under the Trump administration, covering child detection, fentanyl seizures, and violent crime reduction, with a special focus on Northern Virginia.
Thanks to President Trump's administrations, that's double than where we were this time last year. And we have also arrested 1,600 people who have committed violent acts against children. 270 of them are human traffickers of children. Mr. President, this is what happens when you have great leadership at the Attorney General with Pam Bondi. Your administration's priority of protecting the homeland and protecting American citizens and protecting our children, and the murder rates are plummeting. We are now able to report that the murder rate is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history, in modern recorded U.S. history, thanks to this team behind me and President Trump's priorities. And how do we do it? And what are we going to bring to D.C.? What we did in Northern Virginia, thanks to Terry Cole and Governor Youngkin and the team, we stood up a task force out in my Northern Virginia field office, and we said, let's let good cops be cops, let's get them the intelligence and what they need, and let's get the red tape out of their way, and let's get DOJ partnered up with us to bring great prosecutions, and that's exactly what we did. In 1 month, we arrested 545 violent felons. 545 in the state of Virginia, thanks to Governor Youngkin's partnership. And that simplicity in law enforcement is what's coming to Washington, D.C. When you let good cops be cops, when you give them the intel they need, when you work with our Homeland Security Task Force, when you work with Terry and Gaddy, and I go way back to Miami. These guys are great leaders of the respective departments and law enforcement capacities. And when you have the DOJ and President Trump driving behind this mission, we are going to clean up Washington, D.C., and we're going to do it the right way, the lawful way, and we're going to make sure Washington, D.C. is safe again. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you very much.
Director Patel began by thanking President Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and other federal partners, emphasizing that their leadership enabled law enforcement officers to be cops and deliver results. He started with a striking statistic. More than 4,000 child victims have been identified and rescued this year alone, which he described as a 33% increase from the previous year. On the surface, that sounds like clear progress. But it also raises a question. Does the increase mean victimization is rising, or that enforcement and detection have improved? The distinction matters. Though the speech didn't address it, Patel also highlighted the seizure of 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl so far this year. For context, he noted that this amount is enough to kill 115 million Americans. It's a powerful framing designed to stress the gravity of the crisis. At the same time, as analysts, we should ask whether these larger seizures reflect more fentanyl entering the country or simply more effective interdiction. Both scenarios have very different policy implications. The director then pointed to broader enforcement statistics. The FBI has conducted 19,000 arrests this year, double the pace of the previous year. Out of these, 1,600 individuals were charged with violent crimes against children, including 270 child traffickers. These are deeply serious cases, and Patel credited Trump's administration for making child protection a top priority. One of his boldest claims was that the U.S. murder rate is on track to hit the lowest level in modern recorded history. If accurate, that would indeed be a significant milestone. But we should be careful with national crime trends. They're influenced by a wide range of factors, from economic conditions to local policing strategies, and not solely by federal leadership. Patel then used Northern Virginia as an example of what he called smart, simplified law enforcement. He described how his field office created a task force, cut through red tape, partnered with the DOJ, and empowered officers with intelligence. The results? In just 1 month, they arrested 545 violent felons in Virginia. The takeaway was clear. By removing bureaucratic obstacles and focusing on intelligence-driven operations, law enforcement can deliver dramatic results. Patel argued that this model could be brought to Washington, D.C. to clean up the city and make it safe again. As an analyst, I'll say this approach has merit. Empowering officers with intel and coordination does tend to increase efficiency, but there are always trade-offs to consider, particularly around civil liberties, oversight, and ensuring due process isn't compromised in the push for faster results. Those are questions Patel didn't address in his remarks, but they're part of the broader conversation. So what's my assessment? Director Patel presented an image of aggressive, effective law enforcement under the Trump administration. The numbers on child rescues, fentanyl seizures, and arrests are significant and deserve recognition. But as always, context is key. Are these trends sustainable long-term? Do they reflect broader improvements in public safety or simply spikes in enforcement? And how do we balance law and order crackdowns with the equally important goals of community trust and fairness in the justice system? At the end of the day, Patel's message was one of confidence, that with the right leadership and interagency collaboration, America can dramatically reduce crime and keep its communities safe. The reality is more complex, but the data he shared gives us a lot to think about. Thanks for watching. And if you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more fact-based political analysis.